You've seen me do 5 different runs of the Elite Four and live stream Fire Red, but I think it's about high time I did a proper Let's Play within the franchise. Hello guys, this is UniversalGiant, and let's play Pokémon SoulSilver for the Nintendo DS. Released alongside its counterpart Heart Gold, these two games were, in fact, remakes of the second generation of Pokémon games for the Game Boy Color. Gold and Silver, my favorite generation, in the graphic style of my favorite graphic style generation, the fourth, which included Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And this game has a lot of sentimental value to me because it was... Well, Heart Gold was the game that I played that originally got me back into the Pokemon series, but I think the game will speak for itself. Let's jump right into it. Now, I imagine most of you watching this are already somewhat familiar with Pokemon, if not already pretty well versed in it. So I won't spend the entire first video doing absolutely nothing but tutorials. I'll try to intersperse all of that throughout the project rather than, spend the entire first week telling you, hey, this is a button that you push to attack, and this is the button that you push to run away. Because all of this is pretty straightforward and relatively simple. Even if you've never played Pokemon before, I think one of the big things about the franchise that makes it as available to everyone is that it's pretty easy to pick up if you've never played it before. It has a lot of, the basic RPG mechanics. Although there are a lot of cutesy things about it, like the Pokemon themselves, which, at least for the first two generations, were pretty darn creative and cute, if you ask me. Look at Barrel bouncing up and down, he's so adorable! But yeah, just like I did with golf, I'll be trying to explain as much about the game as possible, but not trying to bore you guys to death with explanations. Hello, Professor Oak. You can't tell whether or not I'm a boy or a girl. Apparently neither can I. It's funny how he actually... You can do this as many times as you like, and he won't question whether or not you're aware of your own gender. And since we only have 7 characters to choose our name, I'll just stick with Giant. Oh, this music is bringing back so many good memories. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this project. I've never actually Let's Played a Pokemon game before, which you guys are fairly aware of. So I don't really know what to expect in terms of how this project is going to go. I just know I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. But first, our PC contains mail from Lyra. Lyra is going to be our, well, not necessarily companion, but we'll be running into her fairly often. She's the character that we didn't pick to start with. And if you chose a female character, you'd get an email from Ethan. And I believe this is the only mail we get in the entire game. Good for us. And we also have a Wii. But we're not going to spend too much time playing that because nobody wants to see me play with a Wii. And, of course, we have a television. And unlike the Gold and Silver games, we can't decorate our room. This is pretty much what we're stuck with, and Mom's not going to buy us any decorations for it either. She will, however, equip us with a lot of things that we didn't have before. And no, I'm not going to be voice acting for anybody in this game, really, because there are just too many people, and nobody is that interested in what they have to say. Soul Mom gives us a bunch of handy things, only 2 of which I think we'll actually be using. First, I'll change around the options. This is always the first thing I do when I jump to a game. Make the text speed fast. Battle scene is whether or not you show the battle animations. I'll leave those on just because they're pretty to look at, but I usually have them off. Battle style, and I'll explain in a little bit, and since this is SoulSilver, there is a particular type of frame that I'd like to use. And here we have a save function, which will take forever to save, so I'm not going to do any of that on screen. Our trainer card shows how much money we have, what badges we have, and a bunch of things related to, you know, online battles and such. But that we'll never use. The bag contains a bunch of different items that you could be using. I'll explain all of these later on. I think for the most part we're ready to go. And as you can see, it's a very early morning. Hello, Meryl. Hello, Lyra. I really love how you get to walk around with your Pokemon out here in this generation. It is... Heart Gold and SoulSilver, at least to this point, were the only games that allowed you to walk around with your Pokemon outside. And I think that adds a lot of charm to the game. I can't go on my adventure yet. It's dangerous to go alone. There, I got the joke out of the way. What's this guy doing? Oh, so that's the Pokemon Lab. I guess that's the place we should go last, because we want to talk to everybody else first! This is probably going to bug everyone who has ever played a Pokemon game, ever. But I'm going to be talking to as many NPCs as possible, simply because I've never done it before, and I'm interested to see what most of them say. But since I wanted to do, live commentary for this instead of post-commentary, I'm going to be playing this on an emulator, and that emulator has some pretty interesting graphical glitches. Like you may have noticed here, the shadow for the, I don't know what that is, a wind vane, is outlined by lines. There are going to be a couple of other glitches like that. I just want to point them out here and now so nobody complains about them later. But they're obviously not there on the DS, which I assure you. And also the outlines around a lot of the solid objects here too weren't there on the DS. Lyra, there you are! And you have a Wii too! Why aren't we playing Mario Kart or something? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hi, Meryl! Can we check her PC? Gosh darn, I wanted to write angry messages on her Facebook. Oh well. Crucial decision time. Should we go into the lab or should we go upstairs? I don't know how many people are aware that there's actually an upstairs to the Elm lab. Yeah, most researchers do that. I would know. Just like somebody else we know. Well, maybe not. But it's about time we headed into the Elm lab and started our adventure! It's been a little bit too long since we've done this. Of course he is. And before we move on, we can actually check these and read the books to give us travel tips. This is why I'm not going to be explaining to you why most of the controls work the way they do, because the game will do it for me if I talk to everything. And unlike other games, you can't interact with everything in the environment. I'll try to limit my interaction to things that actually interact with you. Not, say, a tree over here that isn't really going to say anything. And like every other Pokemon game, where you're introduced to a professor that knows a lot of Pokemon stuff. Pokemon. Have I said Pokemon enough today? Pokemon! Aren't I excited? Maybe a little too excited. Oh, Professor Elm. I forget if you're actually the youngest professor of the 5. I forget most of their names, actually. The only ones I remember are Oak and Elm, really. Because I've played these games so often. But Elm has a friend named Mr. Pokemon, and we have to deliver something to him. Or talk to him or something. Which seems kind of silly, because they can email each other. Whatever. An excuse for an adventure is an excuse for an adventure. Now, like all of the other games to date, you can choose between one of 3 starter Pokemon, and you have to choose one of these 3 before you can move on. And like most other games, you can choose between a grass starter, a fire starter, and a water starter, each of which is strong against the other. So, grass is strong against water, which is strong against fire, which is strong against grass. Now, Chikorita, the grass type, fairly defensive. You'll mainly be using it as a supporter, so it won't be as helpful early on in the game. And combined with the fact that it's weak to the first 2 gyms, it's generally the most challenging starter to open the game with. Totodile is fairly well-rounded, more strong on the physical side, and it has a pretty diverse move pool. I'd say it's about the average starter to go with. And I think the fan-favorite Cyndaquil is the strongest and fastest, especially on the special side, but its defenses are relatively weak. Generally, it's up to you who you want to start with. What I'm going to aim to do for this LP is pick Pokemon that I generally haven't used before. And surprisingly, I used Chikorita when I first played through Gold when I was a kid, and when I went through Heart Gold, I used Cyndaquil. So I'm going to go with the only starter I haven't completed this generation with, Totodile. Look at those pretty sidebars, they're so pretty! But the theme for my team is going to be generally either games that I've played recently or Let's Plays that I've done. So, since Totodile is a crocodile, I'm going to go with another crocodile that we've run into earlier. And most of these references should be pretty straightforward. And thankfully it was a male, because if it wasn't, this nickname wouldn't make any sense. I've decided on most of the nicknames. I don't care what the genders are going to be, really. I mean, I'm not going to reset for 10 hours waiting to get the right gender or nature. If you don't understand what I'm saying, don't worry, I'll explain it later on. In fact, there's so much to be explained about Pokemon, but we've got plenty of time to talk about it. So, if you guys have anything you really want me to explain, let me know. I'll explain it sooner rather than later. And now that we have a Pokemon, let's actually take a look at its stats. Strongly Defiant. That doesn't bode well for us, does it? And a neutral nature. So, pretty straightforward stuff here. Unfortunately, we don't have a beneficial nature, which kind of sucks, but it'll be okay. Then before we leave, Professor Elm's assistant is going to stop us and give us potions. Potions are going to be our healing items for the game. Generally, if you want to heal outside of a town or something, you're going to have to use potions. Hi, Lyra. I have a water type too! It's so adorable how you know exactly what Pokemon I pick. Pretty simple to program into the game, but even a lot of older games don't do something as personal as tell you what starter you picked in the dialogue. Because they're too lazy to change the dialogue. Are you going to stop me from leaving now? Yes, you do. You'll notice me stop and talk with my Pokemon fairly often, more often than most people should. But like I said, I think it's adorable that you get to walk around with your Pokemon in these 2 games. So I kind of obsess over it a little bit. And if we go back to talk to Mom, she gives us our Pokegear, which is going to be a lot more helpful than it was in the 2nd generation, I guess. Yes, I remember how to make a phone call. They're going to be fairly annoying later on because I like getting everybody's phone number, which will probably piss you off, but I don't care. Right now the Pokegear doesn't do much of anything. We can call Mom, I'm not going to bother. We can also change the background of this thing, which can make it look fairly cool. I think this is the default for the girl starter, if you choose the girl character. Team Rocket-based one. Guess this is more Japanese. I don't know how else to describe this one. And this is one that I would generally want to use just to be different. but at the same time, I'm really more fond of the blue one. 5 would be my second favorite, and then you have... I don't know how to describe this one either. I'll just go with the default, which is boring, but I don't really care. And since this episode would be completely boring otherwise, I say we go out and actually explore and fight things. What do you say, Totodile? No time for relaxing, we have adventure to do. Adventure ho! Gosh darn it. What do you want? I just wanted to take your Pokemon and leave. Okay. Everybody wants to give us their phone number in this game. Very strange. But we finally entered our first route, and this is where we can start running into Pokemon and fighting them! How do you feel about fighting your fellow brethren, Totodile? I would be too if I were in your position. But once we enter this grass, we can run into wild Pokemon encounters. And at least I've found, generally, on your first way through, you're not going to run into too many, which is kind of surprising that I got through that entire section of grass without running into any. Yep, it's also a good idea to use potions to heal up. But these ledges we can jump down, and we could do this all day if we feel like, but I think Totodile will get tired. Too bad we can't cut it down yet. Too bad we can't headbutt it yet. This game is telling us all the things we can't do. I want to know what I can do. We can fight things! It's a Pidgey! It's a bird! Kill the bird! Ooh, critical hit, sweet. Now, what I'm not explaining about this is you can choose between 4 attacks. Your starter will only know 2 at this point. One is generally offensive and the other one is a debuff. And when you beat something up, you get experience for killing it. How do you feel, Totodile? Are you guys bored of me talking to Crunch yet? I suppose you are by now. But this is generally why I'll be leaving the battle animations on, because it's a lot easier to see and understand what's going on rather than me just pressing a button and watching your HP scroll down. But I'll just show you what Leer does. It's a defense debuff, which lowers the Sentret's physical defense, so we can hit it for more physical damage. And since Scratch is a physical attack, it will break through that defense, and you saw Scratch did more the second time than it did the first time. So close to leveling up! Hey, buddy! Wait, how... Fourth wall... Games really like breaking fourth walls, don't they? How else are you supposed to explain controls, really? I mean, the Mother series did that so well. It just didn't care about the fourth wall at all. But for the most part, I'll be cutting out the wild encounters like this, especially if we've seen the Pokemon before. And since it is early in the morning here, we're going to be running into Sentrets and Pidgeys fairly often. But at nighttime, you'll run into more Rattata and Hoot Hoot. But we gained a level, and our stats increased, and Crunch learned Water Gun! Now, since Water Gun is stronger than, well, it looks like it's the same as Scratch, and in fact our physical attack is stronger, so this should generally be the attack that we use Scratch. But I like having Water Gun up first, because if you use an attack that is of the same type as the Pokemon, you get a 50% increase in the attack strength. So instead of Water Gun being a base 40 attack, since it's being used by a water type, it's actually base 60. So despite our special attack being a little bit lower than our physical defense, Water Gun should do, I guess, about the same as Scratch. Actually, it did fairly more. But you can see our HP is in the yellow, so it may not be a bad idea to use a potion at this point. I try to save my potions until I'm absolutely sure I need to use one. Because I'm really stingy. Hey, guy. It's already daytime. I suggest you start looking now. pretty apricorn! What? Wait. I have nothing to put it in. Okay, moving on. Where are we headed to now? Okay, east to New Barktown, awesome, let's go there! No, we have something else to do. Cherrygrove City. Probably the least memorable city in the game. How can you tell? Everybody is a newbie at some point. It's nice that old man understands that. I always hated this old man because he forced you to go through the tutorial. I'm not sure if Gold and Silver you had to. In fact, I don't think you did. Which is why I always missed out on the thing he gives you at the end. But he's basically explaining all the important things in town. The thing on the right, the red building, was the Am I really confusing these already? The Pokemon Center, which will heal up all of your Pokemon for free. The blue building is the shop, is where you buy stuff. To the north is where we're going to be going next. Over here is the water. It's blue, and it's pretty, and we can't do anything in it yet. Totodile really likes it, though. And over here is the old man's house! And I really hope those shoes are new. And now we won't be walking around really slowly anymore. I will be using these sprinting shoes for, at least, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much the rest of the game, because you move at double speed. Even though I think you get into enemy encounters more often with these on, and enemy trainers will spot you more easily, I just like being able to move around a lot more. So, before we end off the episode, I say we head into the Pokemon Center, talk to everybody there is to talk to, and finally heal up Crunch. But before we do that, up here is mainly stuff that you would only do if you were able to interact with other players, like battle them, trade with them, all that fun stuff. And that's also what down here is for, but we can't do any of that until we get our first badge, I believe. Until then, the only thing the Pokemon Center is good for is healing up our Pokemon. And this I will be cutting out every time I go to heal because it's boring to watch more than once. And that's going to do it for the first episode of Let's Play Pokémon SoulSilver. This has been UniversalGiant, and Crunch is looking around restlessly. See you next time.